up? How did he grow up?
He grew up in Centerville or Walkerville. He was a very smart man. His brothers were very smart. They were a musical family. They were Methodists, good church-going people. He went to work for the Anaconda Company in his teens, I think. The purchasing department, office boy, purchasing department, like that. So he grew up with the company. He was still in the purchasing department when he went to World War I, which was 1917.
So he was part of the Cornish musical tradition. He learned to sing.
He was more macho than that. He wasn't going to be singing, what I mean. He still liked he loved hunting. He loved guns.
Okay, so
he loved fishing.
But he was still working in the purchasing department before he left for the war.
Yes.
And he left, when did he leave for the war?
Latter part of 1917.
So he left after the Frank Little incident.
Uh-huh.
So what do you know from what he relayed to you about that incident?
The Frank Little thing, now the reason I say this is, I can't say it's hearsay, I can just say this is what I was told. Because give the devil his due, in the 30s when my parents got divorced, if my mother could have said you did it, she would have. But he didn't. That night, he was with a group of men that cut the rope and cut him down.
Cut Frank Little down? Were those his friends just out for the night or working partners?
I'm sure they were company security employees of some sort. My father did work for Daniel D-Day Stiers.
Before
yeah, I would say the purchasing department, I think everything was all intermeshed. Uh-huh. I mean, they didn't have things really, you had Pinkerton men, mm-hmm. Then you had company employees that maybe kind of slopped over into
additional duties.
Yeah, additional duties, put it that way. So anyway, when my dad wrapped him up in blankets, or the men wrapped him up in blankets, and they took him to the hospital.
Which hospital, do you know?
I suppose it was St. James, the only one we had, because I don't think Murray's was going, because it was too far from Murray's. So it would be the St. James down there on Silver in Idaho. But the thing was, after they took the blankets to my grandmother, Nellie's house, down on 919 East Boston, and burned the blankets at her house.
Did they ever say why they burned the blankets?
They were all bloody. I mean, the man was dragged down the street behind a car. Now, Dashell Hammett, he had been a Pinkerton man, and he wanted to really write up what he thought happened, and the company put a quash on it. They said, who's going to believe we didn't do it, and who's going to believe if we find out who did? I mean, it's one of those mysteries you're just never going to pin down. At that time, there were so many, Frank Little and his IWWs, all of them. But the thing was, there were so many unions that wanted to get a foothold in here. So they were all fighting to get hold. So, hey, one union says, hey, if we knock him off, the company will get blamed and we can get in. So that was a theory too.
So you feel that your dad was never really had a good idea what happened there, and if he had known, he might have told your mom, and your mom would have told you that he did it. So you feel pretty strongly.
I know he didn't do it. I mean, I cannot see him as having ever doing anything like that. He was not. My father, black was black and white was white. There was no gray.
Yeah.
This is right. This is what it is. This is how it is. He wouldn't have had to hang Frank Little. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There would be another way of taking care of it. They had a big problem. I mean, you had all these socialists, that were trying to get and our big problem was from, I will say, the company viewpoint, or my father's viewpoint. I can't say company viewpoint. We did not have an educated population. They believed whatever they were told. They really did. They came from oppressed countries, and over here, hey, you can bitch about it, nobody's going to shoot you. Nobody's going to throw you in jail if you don't agree.
Well, you had mentioned Dashell Hammett. Did he come to town here to
He
write?
did come back. He came back, and he wrote. Now, I know my dad had not a manuscript, but he had some documents, papers. And when he passed away, my father's wife destroyed anything that was in his private safe. Now I know it was there, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because I used to, we'd go up and we had things in the safe we had to look at. My gold pieces that he kept in the safe, you know what I mean? Things that, as a little girl, when I'd go up, he'd open it up. And he was not a braggart, but he would tell you things. Not really, I don't know how to put it, but you just knew things were there.
Well, where was his office?
414 Hennessy Building.
Oh, and he had a safe there.
He had his own safe there.
Is his second wife still alive?
No, she passed away here. Chuck was still alive. About 10 years ago.
And you know for a fact she got rid of this stuff?
I mean, yes, I'd have to say yes,
Yeah.
because they'd never surfaced, and I don't think she would. Since none of us were friendly with her, you know, there isn't, and it still was company business.
Well,
and he died, see, he was still working when he died.
What year was that?
1955.
Okay, so he died after D.G. Stivers died.
Oh, Lord, yes, D.G. Stivers died away back in the 30s.
Yeah. Well, you said Dashell Hammett came back to Butte. Do you know what
In the
years?
20s.
In the 20s.
In the 20s, that's all I can tell you.
Well, was he here? Was he here?
He was here in the teens as a Pinkerton man.
So he was here during the Frank Little incident then?
I would say he was in the perimeter somewhere.
He was a pretty young man then.
Uh-huh. He was in the field. He was a Pinkerton man.
Did your dad say that? Did you know that? I know there's a lot of speculation about it, but did he remember him? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was a Pinkerton man. My mother always said he was a Pinkerton man. So Mother must have come across him somewhere. And people were not dropping names, you know. It's just, again, it was there.
Well, do you know how the Pinkertons operated? Did they have a different office, or did they?
The company just, in effect, called him up on the phone and said, send me 50 men.
That many men?
Well, I'm just saying,
Yeah, some number,
you know,
yeah.
send me 10 men.
If there's a problem
You
or
know,
something.
if we need so many men, send me so many men. So they were Pinkerton men, so they were sent to Butte to do a job. Just like you contract a plumber to build, you know.
And that would be different from men who were actually on the payroll,
Right.
working for D.G. Stivers or your dad.
Working for the company, yeah.
Now, how did that work? How did that work? First of all, how long did your dad know D.G. Stivers?
From about 19, I'd say, early teens.
And how did they get to know each other?
As I said, my father was a crack shot.
So they enjoyed marksmanship?
Uh-huh.
Because Stivers was real big in that too.
Yeah, and I think that's where it, and remember, my dad was around the company as an office boy, you know, and as a clerk coming into it, you know, coming into his own.
Well, I noticed that D.G. Stivers led that local shooting club.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
they
the
would
Butte
go
Gun
off,
Club.
they'd
Yeah.
go off to matches in Missoula and places like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Was your dad a member of that?
Oh, yes. Yes, he was one of the not founding fathers, but one of the first.
Was that mostly employees of the Anaconda Company that shared that interest, or?
Well, only because they could afford it.
Yeah.
I mean, even in those days, you weren't going to take a day's paying man who had to put shoes, you know, just have bare necessities. He wasn't going to be out there shooting guns off clay pigeons. He'd be shooting something he could eat, to be honest